The Milwaukee regional is finally over with some surprising results. First of all, you may notice from just the top 8 that some things are missing. Some Pokémon are missing. What happened here? These are not the Pokémon we were expecting to be this popular in at least the top cut of this tournament. What happened? Where is Calyrex Shadow? Why there's only one? Where is Zamazenta? Why is Lunala there? How is Ho there? All great questions. So, first of all, where is Zamazenta? We can see Calyrex Shadow here. We can see it. So, it did manage to get at least a top 8 result. But as we scroll down, there's not many others. Like, there's another one here at the 25th place. So, huh? At least it's there. Where is Zamazenta? Where is the dog? Joseph Ugarte, 13th place. What? What do you mean? This was supposed to be the strongest Pokemon of the meta, the absolute king of this regulation, the absolute overpowering Pokemon of the double restricted format after the buffs it received with body press and the ability to coach your Pokemon with, well, coaching. The ability to defend your Pokemon with Wide Guard from these Calyrexes with their broken spread moves. Why is there only one? Well, the reason is very simple, and is the same reason to why Calyrex Shadow is also such in a low representation. They had a target on their head the whole time, even before people were studying this regulation way before even Atlanta. So, yeah, it's kinda fairness syndrome. You are so powerful, you are so overpowered compared to anything else, that you may end up not winning anything because everyone is trying to counter you. How did this happen? Well, Xerneas is so broken that still wins in some way. But Zamazenta and Calyrex Shadow are in a bit of a different position. First of all, Zamazenta. You can see a lot of Incineroars that will have moves like Will-O-Wisp. And let's say Fire-type is not tendentially the preferred Terra-type into what you want Terra-stylize your Zamazenta. Because it's another ground weakness. You don't want your Zamazenta to be weak to ground, even with Terra-stylization. Because at that point, the first Landorus incarnate that you will meet will absolutely demolish you. The first Ursaluna, despite the +1 boost from Dauntless Shield, will absolutely destroy you. So, tendentially, is not a great option. A lot of special attackers. In the top, we can see basically 7 out of 8 places, it's all Miraidon. It's all Miraidon. But doesn't Zamazenta Terra-stylize into stuff like Grass type to avoid Electro Drift? Yes. Unfortunately for you, Miraidon also learns Draco Meteor, which is one heck of a move last time I checked, even despite the nerfs after the 5th gen. So, yeah, I would not, you will not take a Draco Meteor, even if you were Zamazenta, especially if Miraidon is throwing that. Trust me, you don't. So, what else, what real support Zamazenta can offer overall, except for Wide Guard? Wide Guard that can also be offered by the queen that has reawakened in this meta. Lunala. Lunadon is back. He's not with Groudon, but he's with Miraidon in this case. Also Koraidon, we're gonna talk about that later. Lunala not only offers Wide Guard protection, which is something Zamazenta does, but Lunala attacks Zamazenta in this side of the attack spectrum that will not boost the special defense. So, +1 for Lunala. Lunala will also offer speed control, Trick Room or Tailwind. Take your pick. Another point for Lunala. Lunala has an amazing coverage. Moonblast, Meteor Beam, Moonrise Beam. Another point for Lunala. Lunala's Terra type is an actual advantage and will actually help the Pokémon if it chooses to Terrastalize against most of the matchups. Another point for Lunala, because these Lunalas have Terrastalized into a Fairy type most of the times. So, these Lunalas have Terrastalized into a Fairy type most of the times. Another point for Lunala. Lunala's team are more solid. Another point for Lunala. See, Lunala actually does something in these teams that is not just White Guard. Okay? And trust me, you will not see a Calyrex Shadow use Shadow Ball just to pick on Lunala. Another point for Lunala. So, yeah, Lunala is just a straight up upgrade. Plus Shadow Shield is not weak to switching out, if we can call it like that. You just need your Lunala to be full HP, and with the correct support can be something that will be very prevalent in a good chunk of the matchup. So Shadow Shield, you gotta break it before you can actually KO Lunala, which is already a decently bulky Pokémon, despite being 4 times weak to Dark. But as you see in this top 8, there's not many Dark types, there's only Incineroar, and that Incineroar can be dealt with Meteor Beam. Another point for Lunala. Meteor Beam gives a free boost on attack. Another point on a special attack. Another point for Lunala. You don't need Meteor Beam to actually do something damage-wise with Lunala. Another point for Lunala. You can see Lunala is just a straight-up upgrade to Zamazenta and Calyrex Shadow, because you don't lose from all the White Guards, you don't lose damage from the Farigiraf, you don't lose damage to a Dark type switch in, because you can choose your target. It's not a spread move where you lower your damage to do a spread damage, of course, because spread damage in Pokemon lowers the power of the move. But with Moonrise Beam, you don't have to like you have to with Astral Barrage. So, points and points for Lunala. The other Pokemon that was speculated to be powerful is Miraidon. Miraidon is just straight up broken. Like, there's no argument there. And the funny thing is, if we go to Andrew Ding's team, is that this Miraidon is Assault Vest. So, Miraidon has assumed a role which is not only this massive damage dealer with Draco Meteor and Electro Drift, it's also an annoyer with Snarl, meaning opposing Lunalas, opposing special attackers, or opposing Miraidons will have their damage lowered, which is massive. And Ball Switch offers smoothness to the team. Not being locked with a choice item is also very helpful in this kind of format, because this smoothness which your team will have is also a very important factor. If your team manages to be smooth with a choice specs Miraidon, it's very good. But in this meta, not all teams can afford that or want to afford that. So Assault Vest, a bit bulkier, you can resist some moves, but you can still dish out a ton of damage because your name is Miraidon. You are a way solider option than Groudon. Without the primal, Groudon is very volatile because of Precipice Blades. Meanwhile, Miraidon's damage is more solid, especially with Electro Drift. Draco Meteor, yes, can miss, but it's more accurate than Precipice Blades. Snarl, it's still more accurate, deals a ton of damage to Calyrex, which, as we saw, doesn't seem to really run with Pokemon with Wild Guard. So, you can see that the landscape of this meta is kind of forming to allow Miraidon to give up the choice specs and choose a bulkier option. Lunala, we already talked about how strong it is. It also, the lead, it may seem weird to see such a fast Pokemon like Miraidon along with a Trick Room team with Lunala, but figure this, you lead Lunala Miraidon, Volt Switch, you deal some big damage to the opposing Pokemon, you switch out, put Ursaluna inside, which at the end of the same turn will have the Flame Orb and the Guts ability activated, so you have 100% of uptime with Ursaluna. And with Lunala you set up the Trick Room for Ursaluna. And with Wild Guard you are also immune to your own Ursaluna's Earthquakes. It's a perfect landscape, and this reasoning is the reason why Zamazenta and Calyrex Shadow flopped compared to the expectations. People saw what that duo can do and said, and I wanna counter them. And they countered them. And they did it in a way that can be very powerful towards any other threats of the meta. Because these teams also did well in the, let's take Lunadon, Lunala Miraidon against Calyrex Ice. Calyrex Ice got defeated by this team because of the Moongeist Beam. You don't need Astral Barrage, just Moongeist Beam. Calyrex Ice does well against Miraidon, if doesn't terrestrializes, does well against Ursaluna, does well, like, you can see how the meta intricated within itself and created this top that we are seeing right here. Okay, which is incredible. Also, we are seeing a comeback of Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl is a Pokemon that, like Farigiraf, which is also in the finals, scales with the meta. The more you need that kind of support, the more you need to be more efficient to how much damage you take and do, Grimmsnarl is there. If you need control over your board, Grimmsnarl is there, places screens, paralyzes, spirit breaks, lowers the special attack, it's there. And this completes well with the fact that your Trick Room setter is a ghost type, so it's already immune to fake outs. If your Trick Room setter isn't immune to fake outs, Farigiraf will stop them for you. These two teams that were in the finals are very different but fundamentally similar. We have a Trick Room abuser, which is also the setter, and another abuser, which is either Ursaluna or Iron Hands. They have supporting casts, they have a supporting fire type, Volcarona, Incineroar. They have a board controller, which is Grimmsnarl, which is Farigiraf, and then another Pokemon which can be Ogerpon, which offers Follow Me and big damage. We have Urshifu, which offers big damage, and that's it. So you can see that this landscape you are seeing in the top is formed in a very interesting way. And then we have to address the bird in the room. OO has seen, very funnily, more usage in this top 25 than Zamazenta, which is crazy to think about. But there's a good reason. OO is a very interesting Pokemon. It's surprisingly bulky as Regenerator. It was used as a Xerneas counter, because it's a fire type with such a massive special defense. The fact that it has a special defense definitely played a role here as well. Also the fact that can do speed control, can burn with Sacred Fire, can dish out a lot of damage with Brave Bird, definitely helped, especially among against Pokemon like Zamazenta, Because doesn't matter what your Zamazenta terastalizes into, OO can pick the correct move accordingly. Can terastalize into grass, so any electric type move will be not very effective on OO. And yeah, that worked. I can Pokéaim did an amazing run. I was following his Twitter, and he was like, "Yeah, no, I will be defeated soon. I will be defeated soon." Top 8. After 8 years of not participating into a BGC tournament, top 8 instantly. Massive, amazing. But and this not the only guy that saw an opportunity with OO. Aditya Subramanian also saw an opportunity with OO, with seems like a double speed control team, yes. It has both Tailwind and Trick Room for the Ursaluna, so it's very interesting. And if we go a bit lower, Seed Away. Again, OO. With, very interestingly, Sinistra, with Rage Powder, Machagocha, Hospitality, Life Due, Trick Room, basically wanting to create an immortal OO, which is basically one of the points that you want to achieve when playing OO. You have this massively bulky Pokemon that can dish some interesting damage, can fish out some bursts, slowly taking down your Pokemon. It's always a very interesting pick. I don't want to say it's a sleeper pick, it's an interesting pick. Can it win the Worlds? That I don't know. If the Worlds are infested with Calyrex Ice, maybe. It can super effective burn. These guys can force a terastallization. It's a very interesting Pokemon, nonetheless. And now, the other kinda missing but still very present actor of this list. Where is Koraidon? Well, Koraidon is here. It did well than some Calyrex Shadows. But what happened with Koraidon? Koraidon is not a bad Pokemon. Okay, this time Miraidon won, but the fact that we can see Lunadon, Koraidon, Lunala with a past Paradox Pokemon, especially Brute Bonnet, in a meta where Pokemon like Lunala will very much be very common. Pokemon like Miraidon, Pokemon like Ursaluna, Brute Bonnet is a Pokemon that can stand against them all. So I don't wanna say that Koraidon with the past Pokemon is a disappointment, is a fraud, is not a fraud like Zamazenta and Calyrex Shadow. Which calling them a fraud is also wrong because they're also strong Pokemon. The reason why they did not do better is because everyone was preparing for them. If no one prepares for them, they are gonna absolutely destroy everything. So don't count out Zamazenta and Calyrex Shadow out yet. But don't count out Koraidon as well, because Koraidon Brute Bonnet is a very interesting combo that has some potential against the very Pokemon that won this very tournament. It does have some problems against OO, but I feel like with some adjustments to the team, I feel like perhaps a Raging Bolt to bait out the Grass terastallization, but I feel like Koraidon, Lunala with Brute Bonnet especially is the real sleeper pick. Because nobody's looking, but they are in the back, waiting for the right moment to strike and do even better than now. So, don't underestimate Lunadon with the Sun. Lunadon with the Electric Field has overwhelmingly won Milwaukee. But the Sun is they're creeping. It may strike when we least expect it with a new reformed team that can take over everything. So, we talked about why Lunala is so good. We talked about how Miraidon is so good. We talked about Calyrex. No, Calyrex is another powerful Pokemon that people were expecting. Despite being a physical attacker, Miraidon, Volcarona, even Iron Hands with the Quark Drive boost can deal with Zamazenta, can deal with the Wild Guard. So don't sleep on Calyrex either. Calyrex is both a Trichum setter and a Trichum abuser that can boost itself up. It can abuse the Clear Amulet because the Clear Amulet may take out a slot for a Life Orb. But Calyrex doesn't need a Life Orb, since if it takes 1 KO, it will boost its own attack. So Calyrex is also very powerful. It got represented a lot more because people realized that it can take more hits, it can stand its ground, even outside Trick Room. It's very difficult to deal with Calyrex, especially in the hands of a capable player. So Calyrex winning over Shadow is not surprising. This is all I had to say about the first Regulation E tournament with the double restricted. All the other Pokemon are, the classic Incineroar, the classic Urshifu. But the Pokemon that won are very interesting. But also the Pokemon that didn't win. Again, Koraidon, Brute Bonnet. They're there ready to strike, so don't underestimate them. I feel like if the right player can take over, can build the perfect Koraidon Lunala team, will absolutely demolish everything in its way. Everything. Because you don't even have to be scared of Intimidates. So, that's all I had to say. I'm very interested in how this meta will evolve. And as always, I'll see you next time.